Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to whatever part of the world you are in. Welcome to our live discussion on pharma landscape in New Zealand. We are very glad to have you join us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day schedule to join this important discussion in this era where pharma is quite important for our survival as such. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you are joining, please keep your mics on mute. Otherwise, our admin will be doing that. If you've got some questions, please raise your hands or put it in the chat box. We can ask. The flow of the day will be, firstly, I'll introduce the chair of INZBC, followed by the High Commissioner of India, and then we'll have the Director General of Pharmexcil giving a presentation, followed by the Chief Executive of Pharma New Zealand. The Pharma New Zealand Chief Executive will speak in three different blocks with an opportunity in each session to have a Q&A session. And then closing remarks by Dr. Shah for the day. Could I once again please request everyone to kindly put your mics, your speakers on mute, because the disturbance certainly causes a little bit of irritation to the speakers as well as to others. It's my privilege now to introduce the chair of India New Zealand Business Council, Mr. Samir Handa. Samir has been doing business with India and in India over the last 2 decades, and he has immense valuable knowledge both of New Zealand as well as for India. So he's got a great hands-on experience and has been fostering the improvement of New Zealand-India trade relations. He's also been on the forefront of setting up offices and factories in India for New Zealand's company Patterns Refrigeration since 2007. He's also director on many Indian companies as well as in New Zealand companies, which includes Bank of Baroda since 2012. And recently he started his own business, Global New Zealand Limited. It's my privilege now to hand over to Samir Handa for the introductions.
Thank you, Sunil. Tena Kauto and Namaste everyone. As we are celebrating a Maori language week here in New Zealand this week, I would like to start today's proceedings with a short prayer in Te Reo Maori. This is a prayer normally used here by the local people whenever they start important meeting like today's meeting. He honore, he kororia, ki te atua. He mongarongo, ki te whenua. He whakarau, pai ki nā tangata katoa. Hangaie te atua he nā kau hau. Ki roto, ki tēnā o mātau. Whakatongia tō wairua tāpu. He awhina, he tohu, ia mātau. He ako hoki, ina mahi, ki roto I tēnei whanau, amine. What it means in English is, we're praying to say, honor and glory to God, peace on earth, goodwill to all people. Lord, develop a new heart inside all of us. Instill in us your sacred spirit. Help us, guide us in all the things we need to learn within this whanau. Amen. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to this online session on pharma landscape in New Zealand, which will be addressed shortly by Pharmex CEO. Today's session is being organized by INZBC, which is India New Zealand Business Council, and Pharmexcil, which is Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India, with the support of Indian High Commission in New Zealand. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our key speakers today, which in order of address will be His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi ji, followed by Uday Bhaskar, Director General of Pharmexcil, and finally followed by our keynote speaker, Sarah Fitt, CEO of Pharmex New Zealand. The Indian New Zealand Business Council was established more than 30 years ago in 1988 to promote and encourage trade in goods and services, investments and research, technical and economic cooperation between India and New Zealand. The Council has a rich history of serving our members and bringing a level perspective to the India-New Zealand dialogue. Our work not only impacts decision-making at a policy level in New Zealand, but also in India. The Council is run by industry leaders of New Zealand who have years of experience in this area, thereby becoming the key stakeholders for international trade development of India and New Zealand. We are recognized as the main industry body by both the governments of India and New Zealand. Almost all of the visiting delegations of Government of India have been hosted by INZBC, and we have organized networking events for them in the past. It is our connections and relationships that enable us to bring experienced knowledge to our more than 200 members from various industries, including pharmaceuticals. INZBC holds regular industry events calling upon specialists, ministers, representatives of New Zealand Trade Enterprise, Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Trade, for meaningful dialogue within the business diaspora. Our key event on INZBC calendar is our annual summit, a platform for New Zealand businesses to have a voice in our trade relationship with India. This year's summit was our first ever hybrid summit, where we had New Zealand's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Nanya Mahuta, and Minister of State for External Affairs of India, Mr. V. Muralidharan, along with CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Khan, and 35 other prominent leaders and experts who are instrumental in shaping New Zealand-India relationship. Over the past few months, INZBC has also held various dialogues with ministries of both governments to ensure that voices of Kiwi businesses are heard. And there is no doubt that in 2021 and the coming years, we'll need to continue to have such dialogue that will help us overcome new and daunting challenges as the world recovers. New Zealand had one of the greatest success stories in managing the pandemic and leading the economy towards an early recovery in early 2021. India's experience with the pandemic stands in contrast as the country withstood the first wave, but faced devastating tragedies during the second wave. However, now due to a robust vaccination drive, India has brought the second wave under control and has administered more doses than all the G7 nations combined. In New Zealand, almost 2/3 of the population has received their first dose and about 1/3 are fully vaccinated. As New Zealand now battles its second wave with robust lockdown in Auckland and semi-lockdowns in the rest of the country, it is our strong belief in the effectiveness of these vaccines and recovery from this pandemic that propels us through these times of isolation. In a recent meeting between the delegates of two countries, India and New Zealand, discussed access to COVID-19 vaccines and medicines and ways to enhance cooperation, with a view that the two nations will be working closely together than ever before in the supply and funding of medicines. Last year, Pharmec, which is the government agency that manages the funding allocated by the government for pharmaceuticals, managed more than $1 billion in spending on medicines. They currently fund over 1,000 different medicines and 3.4 million New Zealanders access funded medicine every year. I'll let Sarah talk more about that, their current and future plans shortly. In the midst of this chaos and uncertainty, let us rethink on the life we want to build for ourselves. Let us work towards building a new normal that we want, a world that will help us appreciate our strengths, where we prioritize the health, well-being of our people, our culture, and our relationships. In closing, I would like to mention another local Maori proverb, Tu tahi ka tu vehe ki hinga, which means in English, united we stand, divided we fall. I look forward to learning and hearing more on how we can work together in building our nation's collective well-being. Namihi, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Samir, for those encouraging words. It's my now pleasure to invite the Indian High Commissioner to New Zealand, Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi. He has been, he's just arrived back in New Zealand after his stay in India, and he is in isolation. But thanks so much, Muktesh, for taking the time out to come and speak to us. Just as a brief background, his background is quite huge, so I'll try and concise to give you an idea of his background of 28 years in diplomatic service. He has been the Indian High Commissioner in New Zealand since 2019. Prior to that, he was in Mexico, where the trade grew about 75% during his time. I mean, 75% is a lot. So he's obviously quite driven, and most of the people in India would know that about the Passport Kendra Seva project. He was the man behind that, and he drove that throughout India. And getting a passport now in India has been very easy, all thanks to Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi. So we're very fortunate to have him in New Zealand, him and his lovely wife. And thank you so much, Mr. Pardeshi, for your time this afternoon, and welcome back. Over to you, sir.
Many thanks, Sunil. I'm just back from India, where I was on a break for 3 weeks. I could see a sense of optimism while traveling in Delhi and my native state, Bihar. This optimism is coming from huge vaccination drive that is undergoing. I would like to thank Mr. Sameer Handa, Mr. Sameer Handa, Ms. Tarafi, Chief Executive of Pharmac, and Director General of Pharmexcil, Mr. Uday Bhaskar, for joining this online meeting on exploring opportunities in pharmaceutical sector between two countries. This has been on agenda for some time. I would like to thank INZBC for organizing this seminar when the COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the world. Humankind never realized the significance of pharma industry for its survival more than the present time. The theme of the seminar, Pharma Landscape in New Zealand, is extremely relevant for the Indian pharma sector. India's strong economy and international influence make it a key partner of New Zealand in the Indo-Pacific region. This seminar follows our annual flagship business summit, which was successfully held in June 2021, as it had been mentioned by the chair, Mr. Sameer. India enjoys an important position in global pharmaceutical sector. India is the largest provider of generic drugs globally. Indian pharmaceutical sector supplies over 50% of the global demand for various vaccines. Globally, India ranks third in terms of pharmaceutical production by volume and 14th by value. The domestic pharmaceutical industry includes a network of 3,000 drug companies and more than 10,000 manufacturing units. The country also has a large pool of scientists and engineers with the potential to steer the industry ahead to greater heights. Pharmaceutical products are one of India's major exports to New Zealand. India drugs and pharmaceutical exports stood at $24.44 billion in financial year 2020-21. India is the 12th largest exporter of medical goods in the world. Indian drugs are exported to more than 200 countries in the world. COVID-19 has presented both an opportunity and a challenge for India to be a pharmacy of the world. India was one of the first countries to develop an indigenous vaccine for the COVID-19 and has played a leading role in supplying vaccines to various countries. Government of India undertook a humanitarian initiative called Vaccine Matri. It could be translated as Vaccine Friendship to provide COVID-19 vaccines to countries around the world. The cooperation between both countries during these harrowing times was notable. During the second wave, when India was struggling in a big manner, New Zealand contributed $1 million to the Red Cross to provide the needy with oxygen cylinders and other crucial medical supplies. India, on the other hand, helped in supplying paracetamol tablets when New Zealand was running. I recall it was in April last year when the then Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Vincent Peters, was very worried, and he called our Foreign Minister, Dr. Shankar, to resume supply of paracetamol products.
Sorry, Your Excellency, are you able to just move the computer a little bit closer because your voice is we're just getting people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah. So I was mentioning that last April, when New Zealand was running short of supply of paracetamol tablets, it was the then Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Vincent Peters, had called our Foreign Minister, Dr. Shankar, wherein the supply of paracetamol to New Zealand. Both countries are also part of a group of 7 countries in the Indo-Pacific region, which meet frequently to discuss supply chain matters and availability of pharmaceutical products in this. These countries include US, Japan, Australia, India, Vietnam, Korea, and New Zealand, of course. Our two-way trade during 2020 was US dollar 1.66 billion. India primarily imports wood, fruits and nuts, wood pulp, and wool from New Zealand. India exports to New Zealand mostly pharmaceuticals, pearls, precious stones, and metals, made of textile and machinery. New Zealand's total pharmaceutical import during the year 2020 was New Zealand dollar 1.5 billion, whereas New Zealand's pharmaceutical import from India during the same period was New Zealand dollar 85.48 million. I see great potential for the Indian pharma sector to expand its reach and rise to the opportunity presented by the New Zealand. In this regard, the effort by INZBC to hold this online seminar on pharma landscape in New Zealand and the presence of the Chief Executive of Pharma is a wonderful idea. We look forward to hearing her and benefit from her experience and her guidance to Indian pharma exporters, how we can collaborate in this field. Thank you very much. And once again, I'm so happy to be joining this online conference, though from MIQ facility. My greetings and many thanks.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your time this afternoon. Unfortunately, due to, I don't know, the comms was coming in and out, but thank you for your time. And also welcome to others who are joining us for this important discussion. If you do have some questions, please raise your hand using the chat thing and put in a question and just mark it who you would like that question to be directed. Now, it's a great privilege to invite Ravi Uday Bhaskar, the Director General of Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India, a very important organizations in the drive of pharmaceuticals in India and also globally. He has been the Director General since 2017 when it was set up in India. He's the Honorary Director General of All India Drugs Control Officers Confederation, and previously he was the Secretary General and President of the same organization. He's played an important role in the regulatory mechanism and is probably the best person from India to talk about the Pharmex, the regulations, and how it is being done, and how India is on global stage. We get talked about so many times about Indian pharmaceuticals and the different generic drugs that they produce. I may say that in New Zealand, we do also get paracetamol imported from India, and later Sarah can correct me if that's right or wrong, but I believe, Dr. Reddy's paracetamol is like kerosene in India, and a widely distributed drug here for basically everything. You got a stomachache, anything, paracetamol or Pamol is the one. So Ravi, it's a great privilege and honor to have you, Bhaskar-ji, and over to you.
Thank you very much for your good introduction, and good morning to friends from India, and good evening to friends joining from New Zealand. His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi, High Commissioner of India to New Zealand, and Mr. Samir Handa, Chair INZBC, and Ms. Sarah, Chief Executive for Pharmex New Zealand, and ladies and gentlemen. Really, it gives me immense pleasure to be part of this summit. At the outset, I'm very much thankful to Indian High Commission for collaborating with Pharmexcil and INZBC in organizing this program. So we're always closely working with INZBC and Indian High Commission New Zealand during our first ever delegation to New Zealand in 2019 July, and subsequently Pharmexcil is also invited by INZBC to participate in the summit of INZBC India and Invest India, and all these people have organized a big seminar, what our friend was talking in June 2021. So we love to work very closely with INZBC as well as Indian High Commission. So our Excellency has clearly mentioned about Indian pharmaceutical industry and its capabilities, how we are contributing to the globe in supplying quality medicines, not only paracetamol and vaccines and other antiretroviral drugs. My presentation is going to be very simple. This is for the benefit of friends from the New Zealand, and just I would like to, I'm not going to take the time what they have allotted to me, that 7 minutes. I'll try to conclude by 5 minutes. So my member companies are more interested in hearing from the Chief Executive of Pharmex, Sarah. So India, our Excellence has mentioned about Indian Pharma credentials. To add on to that, India have highest number of US FDA approved sites, almost 725 as of June 2021. That is the highest approved sites of US FDA outside US. And if we have abbreviated new drug applications and market authorization secured by India is 4346 as on December 2020. So, but if you go to the vaccine side, actually 70% of World Health Organization's vaccine requirements are sourced from India, and 90% of WHO pre-qualified active pharmaceutical ingredients are also sourced from India. Next. This slides shows that how Indian pharmaceuticals are and allied products are supplied to the world. And if you see the pharmaceutical exports in financial year 20, the Indian financial year means April to March, and we exported 20.5 billion US dollars worth of pharmaceuticals and allied products with a 7.57% growth during the difficult times of the pandemic. The exports in financial year 21, we have recorded growth rate of 18.2%, and we exported 24.5 billion. So it's the Indian pharmaceutical industry has contributed amazingly and beyond the expectations of anyone. The entire manufacturing sector is not doing well globally, but Indian pharmaceutical industry rose to the occasion and they supplied medicines to the entire world in these difficult times. And almost we recorded this growth after 8 years. So if you see the bottom left side is, when the financial year 2011 and 2012, it was only 10.1 billion exports. By financial year 21, we're almost double, more than double. It's 24.5 billion. The pharmaceutical industry growing steadily and very fast, and in that process, Indian pharmaceutical industry is saving trillions of dollars to the healthcare expenses of different economies. So if you see the right side down is our top 10 exporting destinations. In just most of the countries in that 5 are highly regulated and their economies are strong and they have a very strong healthcare parameters. So when I come to the exports to Oceania, the focus areas, that is also very encouraging, particularly from financial year 20 to 21. We have almost recorded the 24.26% growth rate, values 428 million US dollars. Next. These are the exports to New Zealand, as our friends have mentioned that there is a huge potential for Indian generics. It's the most of the drugs are prescribed are patented in New Zealand, but generics also have a very substantial contribution of if you see that pie chart. So, the market size may sound not big. It's always you need to take the population into consideration and health parameters also into consideration. So how the New Zealand has handled the pandemic itself says that they are very, very strong and very robust in their healthcare system. India is the 4th largest formulation importing partner to New Zealand. So our exports to New Zealand in the financial year 20 is, these are the figures which are available with the Pharmexcil, and I stand for correction also. Financial year 20, we exported 41.97 million, and financial year 21, it's a 53.01 million with 26.31% growth rate. Even during the first 5 months of this financial year, April, July, we recorded again more than 20% the growth. But if you see the pricing and the quality of Indian-made generics, certainly will reduce the expenses on medicines, and it will give an additional advantage to the health ministry to work very closely with the Indian government as well as Indian pharmaceutical industry. Next. Just I would like to emphasize more on the role of India during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not going to talk more about hydroxychloroquine, paracetamol, or remdesivir, and all these repurposed drugs. So India is known globally all these days that that they are capable of manufacturing generic formulations. But this during the pandemic, if you see the Indian vaccine industry's contribution, so the Serum Institute of India, in collaboration with AstraZeneca, developed a vaccine and the Covishield, and they also partnership with Gavi and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for 100 million doses. One more Indian company, the Bharat Biotech, has developed an indigenous vaccine for COVID-19 in collaboration with the Indian Council for Medical Research and National Institute of Virology. This is completely an indigenously developed vaccine. And really, His Excellency was telling that, the people in India have got very high level of confidence. They can able to handle, and they can give a strong and rebuttal to this COVID virus. So Zydus Cadila, also again an Indian company, developed world's first DNA-based COVID vaccine, Zycov-D. That is also a very significant achievement as far as Indian vaccine side is concerned. And the most of the Indian companies like Dr. Reddy's, Vicho Biotech, Serum Institute of India, Pardeshi, Hetero, Gland Pharma, all these companies are working with the Russian Direct Investment Fund for manufacture and supply of Russian vaccine Sputnik V. And the Biological E, one more company in collaboration for manufacture of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The Indian companies like the Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, Biological E Limited, Indian Pharma, etc., are also developing vaccines in collaboration with different international agencies are at different stages. So this in the days to come, we have supplied almost 66 million doses of COVID vaccines to different more than 90 countries. So India have a strong message to the world that India not only capable of producing the generic medicines at a very affordable price, we are also capable of producing the vaccines. India is known for producing child vaccine, the polio, measles, but India has given most of the global community got surprised with particularly the indigenously developed vaccines, Bharat Biotech and Zydus Cadila. So these are the areas where we can, INZBC, Indian High Commission and Pharmexcil can take it forward. And my member companies are very much interested in working closely with Pharmec, INZBC, and her presentation, Sarah's presentation, is going to be very interesting. At the outset, once again, I'm very much thankful to His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi ji for we are fortunate that he is back to New Zealand and he's participating from a hotel. And I'm also thankful to INZBC and Pharmec for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhaskar, for that presentation. And you did use your allocated time, so that was great. But look, now we'll move on to Sarah, who's the CEO of Pharmec New Zealand, and I know many of the Indian distributors and manufacturers would be keen to hear from her.